Hey everyone, it's your favorite blind girl back on your screen with another one. This is as much of a love letter to you as it is a note to self. Something happened last week and I just realized that I needed to remind myself and also share with you this little thing. I'm surprised I haven't talked about this topic before on this channel because it's so important, but what had happened was last Friday I was on a panel. And it wasn't the first time I was on a panel, but for some reason I was in my feelings, like paranoia on level high. Anyway, during this process, between my camera memory card filling up 3 times and this shutting down every 5 seconds, I don't know why. Okay, let me rewind. It was a panel about blindness. And during the panel, I started to feel like I'm not blind enough to be here. I feel like a fraud, like imposter syndrome for real, for real. But once it sunk in, I'm like, they chose me. I am me. I am here. I went from there. Of course, by then it was like the second half. I'm just like, okay, at least I'm more comfortable, whatever. We're going to go from there. I had a long conversation with my cousin afterwards, and she really encouraged me and uplifted me, which I needed because I was just like, yo, I didn't realize how insecure I still was about my visual impairment. You think 10 years living this way, you'd be okay, but nah, especially because it adjusts and it gets worse over time, but I'll talk about that in another video. Today I want to talk about the whole feeling of not being enough. So whether you feel like you're not blind enough, black enough, smart enough, good enough, fill in the blanks, whatever enough, you are enough. And just to show you how God works or the universe or whatever you believe in, the very next day I was at an engagement party and I started to feel nervous all over again, the same way I did during the panel. Eventually, as the night went on, I began to feel more in my element. Maybe it's because the Aperol spritz kicked in. And I started talking to some very interesting people. And one of the people I spoke to was this girl who recently moved into the village. So for those of you who don't know, here in the Six, we have a lot of different communities and a lot of different neighborhoods where you'll find a lot of people from an identifying community in. And the village is where a lot of people from the LGBTQ community live. So when she told me this, I'm like, oh my gosh, you must love it there. Like, I go there all the time because my good friend Jeff lives there. She's like, yeah, I love it. But sometimes I feel like I'm not gay enough. And, you know, I don't feel comfortable sharing my story because I came out recently and I just moved there. And for me, it was like a spark because it reminded me of what I went through less than 24 hours ago. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm legally blind and I've been through that feeling too. And the only thing I can tell you is no matter where you're at on your journey, that is your truth. So if you want to share with me or anyone else, if you want to go on a soapbox or create a YouTube channel, that is your truth. Whether you were diagnosed with my eye disease yesterday, 10 years ago like me, or you've lived with it your whole life, no one can diminish your experiences. And it's a disservice to diminish your experience. The audacity in my Drake voice of people in the blind community who've told me that I'm not blind enough, or people who tell me, oh, you're the beginning stages of your blindness journey. What does that mean? I don't want to get too philosophical with it because that's what the pod is for, but there is no beginning or end. And I look at things more as stages and phases. So whether you were diagnosed yesterday or you're someone who comments and says you've lived with it for 40 years, that is your truth and no one can take it away from you. I think there's levels to everything. And on top of that, there's layers on everything. My life as a legally blind person is not the same as somebody else who has the exact same disease. The things that you don't see when I turn the camera off are the things that impact me. And same with other people. We do a disservice to ourselves when we tell ourselves that, hey, we're not enough or our story is not meant to be heard. We're living in a culture where if you don't have enough followers, if you don't have enough degrees, or if you're not an expert in your field, you don't have the right to speak. But I think otherwise. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some fields where you do need to be an expert and you need to get that PhD, or there's certain topics that you really shouldn't speak on. But for the most part, if it's your experience, your life experience, no one can take that away from you. And I think it's so important that we all realize that, because I think once we share, we pay it forward for the next person who's going through it. And I've learned so much from people who are half my age that have had this disease their whole life, the same way I've learned so much from people who are 40 or 50 or 60 who were diagnosed 2 weeks ago. I think there's a place and a space for everyone on this planet. I do believe that we all have a purpose. I have no idea what mine is, don't ask me, but I think that there is something that we're living for. And as part of that, we have to be authentic and be real with ourselves and share that with people who deserve it. I'm not saying be vulnerable with everyone or stand on the street corner and tell everyone your life story, but when you feel comfortable and when it feels real to you. I think there's so much. We always complain that we live in the generation of people not wanting to connect. We're always like on our phones, staring at screens, whatever. And then when we have these real opportunities to share our truth and give value to somebody else and give ourselves value, sometimes we miss it because we're too afraid of what the other person's going to think or how they're going to feel. But more times than not, when I share with someone that I can't see well and that I've been living life legally blind for 6 years, even if they can't relate, even if they have perfect vision, even if they haven't had anything bad happen in their life, because it's all relative, it's still something that can hopefully ignite in them and inspire them to be their best selves in their own way. And when something happens, they can handle it with grace and deal with it in a way that best suits themselves and their lifestyles. I love making these kind of videos. I don't know if you prefer these or the vlogs, so let me know. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe to show you care. Stay safe, stay sane, stay blessed. Until next time, love and later.